Welcome to the Rachel Varga podcast. I'm your host, Rachel Varga, double board certified aesthetic nurse specialist since 2011 with over 20,000 rejuvenation procedures performed. I'm an international clinical trainer for other physicians and nurses as well, celebrity skin expert, having been featured on some of the world's top proactive aging podcasts, and much, much more. Learn more at rachelvarga.ca and enjoy today's episode. Welcome, welcome, welcome. I am so excited to be here today with you. I have had quite the morning. I was feeling a little stressed out this morning. So what I made sure that I got in some exercise and I headed over to Upgrade Labs Victoria for a fabulous sunlight and sauna. And trust me, I am so relaxed now, clear, focused, and balanced. And in today's episode, we're going to talk all about maintaining a balanced skin, right? We want to keep our skin nice and healthy. We want to address things like diffuse redness and mitigate things like breakouts and all of that. And we're also going to talk about tips for keeping your body balanced. So, here on the podcast, we talk all about body, mind, spirit, energy optimization to bring forth a higher level of beauty and vibrancy and radiance and all of that. But today we're going to focus a little bit more on the physical. So welcome everyone to today's episode right here on the Rachel Varga podcast. Go ahead and be sure to subscribe here on the Rachel Varga official YouTube channel. Hit the bell notification on YouTube and Facebook. Hit that bell so that you know when new episodes are dropped, and also subscribe to the Rachel Varga podcast and share this episode with somebody who you think could benefit from this conversation on solutions, self-care solutions for balanced skin and a balanced body. Let me tell you a little bit about today's guest. We have Lauren Sanchez joining us today. She's a board-certified holistic health practitioner, women's weight management specialist, and founder of the Purposeful Wellness Corporation. She's known for her no-nonsense, keep it simple approach for helping busy women and men get their health, body, confidence, and energy levels back and better than ever through holistic modalities that bring balance to the body. If there's one thing and theme that I would love to share with you all right now, this very moment in time, is to keep your body, mind, spirit, energy as balanced as possible, right? With yourself and your sovereignty, but also ways to make sure we're remaining balanced with the forces on the planet right now. That's a very deep little nugget that I wanted to offer you all here today. Welcome, Lauren. It's great to have you here on the show. How are you today?
Oh, I am well, Rachel, and I'm super excited to be here with you. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. And just a shout out, learn more about Lauren at purposefulwellnesswithlauren.com. And we're also going to be sharing a summit that Lauren's hosting that I am a guest speaker on. I love speaking on summits. There's such a great opportunity to hear multiple top world-class speakers on various niche subjects, which is great. So why don't we just dive right into it? What do we do for self-care and stress management? Lauren, why don't you go first?
Yeah, this is such a great topic, and I acknowledge you for putting this on and acknowledge those watching for kind of tuning into this. But self-care and stress management is a huge, huge topic. I, you know, Starting from self-care, I believe as, someone who the core of myself is nutrition, right? And what I teach, that is where I start first. Aside from mindset, right? So we have to have our mind made up to even go that route of changing our nutrition and changing the things that we're doing in our life and all those different sort of things. But truly, that is where we start, nutrition. So the things that we put into our mouth, the things that we are, putting on our plates, these things that we're ingesting literally make up our physical bodies, right? So when we're eating these, like you were saying, eating, balance from the earth, and that's so key. So having that whole foods, plant rich way of eating. And when I say that, I mean, whole foods, plant rich. What does that mean, Lauren? Because there's so many ways and diets and things out there for how we are supposed to eat. But really, there is an undeniable huge mountain of nutritional science and research that lets us know that that whole foods, plant rich way of eating is really key and optimal way of eating for, this whole experience that we have as a human, right? So starting there, keeping plants at the center of your plates. If you're someone who chooses to include meat, fish, and eggs, your diet can include that as well, a little bit to a lesser extent. And always, 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 I know you're all about, keeping balance and high vibration and all of that too. So we need to definitely make sure that if we are including animal products in our diet, that they're coming from animals who are humanely raised, who are fed a clean diet, whatever that looks like for the animal themselves. Because a lot of people don't realize these stresses that the animals go through, and not to get like super esoteric on us out here, but the stress that these animals go through, we're really ingesting that as well. So making sure that the foods that we are getting, the especially animal products that we're getting, are organic and humanely raised, humanely put down as well, is really important too. So those things, making sure that there's plants at the core of your diet, making sure if you're including the animal products that they're responsibly raised and put down animals as well. And then also, the third part of that optimal diet is making sure that we're not including those packaged processed foods in our diet, because that can just wreak so much havoc on our body. We're talking about balance here. And when we eat those foods, that's a really, really quick way to really kind of surrender our health in a way, and a really quick way to knock our bodies out of balance. So, one of the things that I say for self care and stress management is really diet. Because when we think about stress, a lot of times we can get tempted to think about stress as just the emotional component. And of course, there's emotional component to it, of course. But there's other different types of stress and things that our bodies perceive as stress that maybe we wouldn't think about either. So that's things like having a diet that is nutrient deficient or nutrient depleted. That is a huge stress on the body. Not having what it needs to perform properly, not having what it needs to heal the areas that need its assistance, not having the ability to shed or release that excess weight that we may need to get down for health's sake. So making sure, like I said, that we are not putting these additional stresses on our body, which can happen where we're not eating that clean, optimal, whole foods, plant-rich diet. So I would say start there. That's the first place to start when we're talking about self-care. But then there's the other things too, the practical side of things, right? So I was talking about the other forms of stress or things that the body perceives as stress. And another big one that we see really plagued in our modern society is sleep deprivation. And that is a huge stressor on the body as well, because when we're sleeping, our body's going through the cleansing and replenishing and healing processes necessary for us to function optimally. So, making sure that we are getting optimal sleep, and not just, oh, yeah, I slept for 7 hours, I slept for 7 to 9 hours, or what have you, but quality is, I would say, more important than quantity, because we were just talking about blue light and the effect of blue light right before we had started recording. So that's one of the things that completely tanks your sleep quality. Not having a nighttime routine, and we can talk about that a little more within the conversation of self-care, but not having a routine to kind of help yourself wind down from all of the thoughts that we've had to come and go throughout of our day. And if we don't have that time to kind of wind down, all of those, questions and concerns and worries from the day are literally just going to follow us into bed, and our quality of sleep is going to be greatly compromised with that. And there's so many other things that we could talk about with, sleep hygiene and creating a sleep sanctuary and all of those different sort of things. But really, I would say that is a huge thing. And you also mentioned another really great self-care and stress management tactic, or two of them, and one was exercise, and the other one was the use of a sauna too. So just these different things. Like, I could go on this for forever. As you know, I'm holistic. So I don't just look at food. I don't just look at your environment. I don't just look at how you're moving. I look at the whole picture. So just a little snippet of a couple of different things in a few different areas that you could do for self-care and stress management.
Fabulous. I love everything that you mentioned. So here we go. Everybody wants to know what I do, and I'm gonna get laser specific here. So take notes. I've taken notes while you were chatting here too. So first of all, shout out to my favorites page at rachelvarga.ca, because I'm going to be referencing a bunch of different biohacking options that I employ daily. that's where to get the affiliate links and also the promo codes so you can save a bit of money. And when you purchase through that link, those links, it actually helps to support me too. So I can continue to show up and give you guys all this really uplifting free content. So, first of all, meat quality. Yes, I am so glad you mentioned this because this is something that I did a Dutch test recently and I was estrogen dominant, right? And so I'm in, year-long preconception phase. So I'm just getting my hormones regulated and all that. So it's like, why the heck am I estrogen dominant? It's got to be from meat because I have been eating a little bit more industrial meat than usual when I took that test. So right away, I just was hyper focused with my meat quality. So I have the opportunity to have a lot of like wild hunted meat here on the island that I live. But for all of you elsewhere, you guys can actually get grassroots meat and use promo code BB30. Grassroots is grassroots co-op. It's basically a farmer cooperative and collective. We need to support our local farmers. So that's grassroots meats, promo code BB30. And the other thing that you mentioned was no processed or packaged food. Sometimes we think, oh, this is going to save me some time, but you know what, sometimes they can save you time and it can be kind of cheap, but you will pay for it in the long run with skin inflammation, body inflammation, accelerated aging. So watch that. Triggers, we're talking about like stress management. Social media is the killer for me. I'll be in a really good headspace, then I open up my IG and it's
Yeah.
just like all the ish going on in the world. So that's one of my triggers. And then also, when we're talking about clean and holistic beauty and beauty sleep, I'm going to drop some of my key things that I do all the time. So number one, I monitor my stress levels. So I'm able to track my metrics through my Aura Ring, and I also use the 8 Sleep Mattress Pro Pad cover. So that tells me that lately my HRV has been elevated, which is good. It's a sign of recovery, and my sleeping heart rate has been nice and low. So I'm doing everything I can to modulate my stress. So that's the 8 Sleep Mattress Pad. Biooptimizers magnesium before sleep is like one of my magic bullets to get a proper sleep. And also, when we're talking about food, I'm a huge fan of testing instead of guessing in regards to which food options are going to be good for you. Don't listen to what I say about food options or any other influencer. I truly believe that you should be testing for this. And I recommend the Viome test kit that you can get at rachelvarga.ca/favorites. And also, when we're talking about detoxifying our sleep space and all of that, I'm a huge fan of air purification. I love the HypoAir Germ Defender, the Air Oasis. I'm lending my one of my heavy duty air filters from HypoAir to one of my girlfriends right now because she's got mold in her house. So we got to pay attention to that. All those things. 8 Sleep, Biooptimizers, Magnesium, Viome, Test Kit, and HypoAir. You guys can get those details at rachelvarga.ca. It's all about the clean and holistic beauty and our beauty sleep. And of course, just do a one-on-one with me. I'll help you guys get set up with a clean skincare that's going to give you results that's free of the parabens, phthalate, sulfates, artificial dyes, fragrances, not tested on animals. But I 100% echo and resonate with everything you mentioned, but I wanted to share what I do for my self-care and stress management, not to mention just a ton of time spent meditating and building up my community with like-minded individuals. Do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I love what you said also. I mean, said like a little blip about, environment, but that is a huge one, especially when we're talking about balance, especially when we're talking about hormones, especially when we're talking about skin. So, I mean, that's huge, making sure that, there's different areas, about 7 areas that I really focus on. So, making sure that you have clean air in your home, letting there be airflow throughout your home, making sure that your water is clean, making sure that the products that you're using are clean. I also like to have my plants here, to kind of clean the air and purify the air of the toxins that we're breathing in. A lot of times, I think environment is arguably even more important in our personal spaces now because we're forced to be indoors more, the past 18 months, 2 years now, which is crazy to think that
2
we've been
weeks
going
turned into
through
two
this.
years awfully quick.
Right, very quickly. And so now more than ever, it's important to have our personal environments. Really, I call it don't talks, detox and don't talks. So make sure that your personal environments are don't tox, it's one thing to aid in your body's detoxification process, which, a high toxic load is another form of stress on the body as well. So making sure that you, in addition to aiding your body's natural detoxification process, making sure that you're not adding to your toxic load through, like you were mentioning, the personal care items that you're using, the things that you're cleaning your home with, the water that you're drinking and cooking your foods with, the things that are sprayed on your produce, making sure that you're going organic for produce. And if that's, price is an issue for you, which I go back and forth with even saying that, because honestly, it's for a lot of foods, especially if you're eating seasonally, it's really not that big of a price gap for a lot of people. But yeah, just making sure that you're getting those organic foods. And if price is an issue for you, at least getting organic for the dirty dozen. And, if you can't, or you have to go conventional, going with the clean 15 for the conventional items that you're getting. So, I mean, I don't want to harp on that, but what you said is so, so important. And I know your listeners are so used to hearing you say that too, but it's so important to keep our environments, under control. We can't control the toxins that are outside, or even in the areas that we might patron or work or anything like that, but we absolutely can control, what's in our four walls, and we absolutely should.
100%. And one of the other things that I have been more and more aware of is electromagnetics. We're talking EMF, we're talking
Yes.
Wi-Fi. And
Mhm.
through some of my conversations with some of my mentors, that is actually like a 7 or 8 out of 10 on the toxic trigger that we need to pay attention to. So this is why I do, like, now I'm doing 1 to 2 days off grid. I have to. I'm only taking max 2 or 3 appointments in a day because it's all about stress management. When I show up here online, this, takes quite a bit of energy. You kind of open yourself up a little bit. So trust me, I do a ton behind the scenes for protection. I got a pretty sweet team behind me. So 100% that our toxic load is for sure going to be a physical stressor. So everything we can do to clear out the ish from our body, mind, spirit, energy, our local environment, that's the input, right? Those are all the inputs. And then our outputs is going to display your skin's going to be more radiant, you're going to have less inflammation, your red acne scars aren't going to be sticking around as long. It's funny, I actually burnt my hand a couple of times. I wasn't heat styling for a long time. And then I, spent like a week keeping my hair curled and stuff like that. And I completely burned 2 points here. But what's really cool is because I'm taking superoxide dismutase and limiting inflammation and inflammatory stressors through my diet, lifestyle, these little red spots are going away faster than ever. Same with if I get a breakout, I don't get that post-inflammatory hyperpigmentation or even sunspots as easily anymore. So trust me, this whole biohacking stuff, stress management, weight management, toxic management is really, really important. So, you work with a lot of people, Lauren, and what are some of the biggest mistakes you see people making when trying to care for their bodies?
Oh, this is a big one and a really, really great question. It's like, where do I even start? So I think really the big two really are, one, not realizing and taking into account that we are living holistic beings. We cannot spot treat our health and wellness, so I think that's first and foremost a really big one, is just not trying to spot treat, trying to paste together wellness or health, or any type of result that we're seeking to create within our body. And I think the other one is trying to go at these different things alone. So, we have there's going to be that person out there who's like, oh, I fix my own this, or I do this for myself. But for the majority of people, if we have a flood in our home, we call a professional to fix it. If our car breaks down, we call a professional to fix it. And I think that same approach, especially in the age of so much information that we have now, I think it's so important to really align yourself with someone who specializes in what exactly it is you're trying to accomplish in your health, even if, your goal is something broad, like I just want to be able to live vibrant, live a radiant lifestyle. And getting crystal clear on what that looks like for you, but finding someone who can be the professional or the expert for you. Like, you don't have to be the expert. We're not going to sit here and dye our own hair or do our own manicure or fix our car or what have you. And we kind of get to take that same approach too, and not try to make ourselves the expert in healing ourselves. We don't have to know everything. It's good to lean on someone. It's good to have a community. You mentioned community as being part of, your stress management protocol, or in your arsenal of stress management practices. And that's so, so important. I think throughout all of the seasons that I've done of my show, I usually ask experts, what's the thing that you would, advise someone, like the number one thing? And they all say unanimously, like, get support with these things. And so that's, two of the really biggest mistakes. And I can dive into, the other different things that we do in terms of our nutrition, in terms of our lifestyle, in terms of fitness and things of that nature. But on a, grander, more high level, elevated view, those are really the two things that I see a lot, that I wish people would, just have a little bit of a transition or shift, to really just get what it is you want for your health and body.
Yeah,
Start there.
beautiful, beautiful, very eloquently spoken. Thank you, Lauren.
Yeah.
To give you guys some tips for building your community, it's really funny over like this last, 2 weeks turned into 2 years kind of deal.
Yeah.
The rate of connection with like-minded individuals has been accelerated. I'm almost going to say like 20-fold.
Mm,
It's so neat how, Zoom and all this stuff, it's really allowing us to access each other quite a bit easier now, which is great. So yeah,
yeah.
100% build your community for high vibe living. Hang out
Mhm.
here on the show.
Yeah.
The lovely ladies who take my skin camp programs, a lot of them actually end up being friends. And I do have a skin camp program running right now. So be sure to register at rachelvarga.ca and you'll see the skin camp sign up page there. Details are also in the show notes below. That's where you get the more off the cuff version of me. And I get into more like product specific recommendations. So I have to be very careful here online. None of this information is medical information. If you think you have a medical condition, you must seek the guidance of a licensed physician. What we cover here is educational information only. Wanted to give a shout out to one of my buddies, Chris at Upgrade Labs. It's great to find people that you can connect with and share what's on your heart and your mind. And, when you connect with other people, you might hear things returned back to you that, oh my gosh, I have been feeling that way. You just shared it too. And it kind of can make you feel a little bit less crazy. But I also want to give a shout out to psychological support. If you're having a hard go right now, you're trying to care for your body, mind, spirit, energy, but you're just really struggling. And a lot of people really are and just aren't talking about this. Like, we're talking really, really struggling right now with all this stuff. Please reach out to a licensed psychologist and get yourself some sessions. Maybe even that's going to look like once a month or every 2 months. Do a check in, even when you're feeling good, just to stay on top of things. Also want to give a shout out to Dave Asprey's community. I love working with clients who are biohackers, people who are really tuned into their body. And if you're kind of like, how do you get into all this stuff? How do you employ it? I can help you as well through a one-on-one call at rachelvarga.ca. So when we're talking about caring for our body, it is going to be an ongoing journey. It's always going to be an evolving practice. We are in highly evolutionary times. So don't be surprised if some of the self-care practices that you employed a number of years ago just don't quite, cut it anymore. And also, you mentioned, maybe not doing your own hair, nails, and working on your car. I actually stopped doing manicures because of the toxic exposure to the solvents and the polish. And I play guitar all the time. I'm in the bush. I am actually working on my car. I can actually do some things myself, which is pretty cool. It's very empowering for me. So figure out what you can do and then also figure out what you need to offload to your team and your support community and know when to ask for help. You don't have to do everything on your own. And I'm sure, Lauren, with your business and what you do with your show, you have your own team. So when you get a little bit stressed out to the max, how do you call on your team?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think it's really important for me personally, and I give this advice too, is to really get clear and centered with what you need before trying to communicate to anyone else. Because a lot of times when we are in that, moment of stress, when we are in that moment of overwhelm, we can get to a place where we're not communicating in a way that's landing in a way that we would really be proud of. So I think first for me, and also the advice that I give is to really get centered with myself. If that just looks like me stepping away for 10 minutes, and then, like I said, getting clear with myself, getting really present to my own emotions and how I'm feeling, and also not having any judgment on any of that, I think is super, super important too. And then, like I said, getting clear on what exactly I need. What does, success for whatever it is that I'm stressed out about, what does success at the end of that really look like? And getting clear on that. And then figuring out what exactly is it that I need for someone to support me. Because a lot of times, and I see this with my clients all of the time, especially with women, we have a hard time asking for help with all of the different hats that we wear and roles, that we, are responsible for. It's hard asking for help. And we have so many people, unbeknownst to us, unbeknownst to many of us, we have so many people in our lives and in our circles who want to see us win and want to see us successful and want to see us thrive and are so willing to help us if they knew how they could be effective in doing so. So I think for me, the communication part and really getting present and clear with myself first before communicating always helps me. Because like I said, your communication lands better and you're actually getting back from whoever it is that you're leaning on support exactly what you need. So
Love, love, love that. All right, now I'll add some commentary to that question. Recall a moment in the past where, whatever, in your personal and professional life, when you were stressed out to the max. And we're talking something that was keeping you up at night, that was an issue for a couple days, a week, maybe 2 weeks at a time, like really freaking stressed you out and was like all that was on your mind. Now, remember how you moved past and through that. And now
yeah.
it's a non-issue. Now it's like, oh, this
Yeah.
was back then. Trust me,
Yes.
stressors come all the time, right? All the
Yes.
time. So
Yes.
the sooner that you're able to acknowledge it and notice that you're stressed and maybe upset about something, have a very objective view on that. It's good to experience emotions. There's no such thing as like a good or bad emotion. Feel
Right.
into it, right? Feel into what your triggers are. So for me, social media is my trigger right now. The IG feed is my trigger because I'll be in a great headspace. I'll look at that and then like something just gets shoved into my face. Whether that is done intentionally or unintentionally is a whole other question. But I
Mhm.
just wanted to mention that building your team of community, your team to call on. I had a really stressful situation come up last week. Like we're talking really stressful.
Mm.
I'm like, shoot, I don't have time or bandwidth to deal with this right now.
Yes. Yeah.
So I was able to call on the team that I've set up, and within
Mhm.
about 24 hours,
Yeah.
handled. So that is like, it's still a bit stressful, but you'll get through it.
Mhm. Absolutely.
Trust
And
me.
something that you also mentioned too. So I think you mentioned this around fixing your car. Like it's so empowering that I actually know how to do this, right? And that's really how I feel with these different health things. And we were talking about biohacking as well. So when I am stressed out to the max, or I'm just in like a really high pressure situation or time in life, I dial down that stuff so tough. Like I dial it down like crazy. I actually just finished a cohort of I have it called my Dream Body Ivy League, and they just graduated. So it's my 8 week program, and they just graduated from that. And that was one of the last things that we spoke about. A lot of my clients are like corporate executive women, and a lot of them are at the year end phase of things. So they're in like high pressure situations too, high pressure times. And like I was saying, I really dial in that stuff. Like, but my sleep hygiene is on point when I am, in those high pressure situations. My nutrition is on point when I'm in those high pressure situations. I supplement with things like the adaptogenic mushrooms, with things like adaptogenic teas. I make sure that my nutrients, I'm not having these different nutrient deficiencies that can creep up. I make sure to step outside, even if I'm just taking a phone call, to step outside and get some fresh air and some, start synthesizing some vitamin D from the sun. But really, really just dialing up those things that you know to do, and those things that you know to, put yourself in a different headspace, put yourself in a different energy state. Do those things and dial those things up so much, because when you're in those high pressure situations, your physiology is kind of going to be working against you in a sense. So you're going to have that influx of cortisol, which is going to be feeding, glucose into your bloodstream, which is going to be, all these different biological processes that happen within stress. So it's more important, than ever, really, when we're in those high pressure situations, to dial up those different things that we spoke about, making sure that your environment's clean, and really everything that we've kind of spoken about right now. And with biohacks too, like, I tell people anytime I have a conversation about biohacks, especially for someone who, that might be new to them, it can feel like such an overwhelming thing. Like, oh my gosh, I have to wear these, orange glasses at this time of night. I have to, have my room at a certain temperature before I go. Like, it can feel so overwhelming. But I tell everyone, like, start where you are. Like, don't feel the need to implement everything that Rachel implements or everything that you see Lauren implement or anything like that. Like, start where you are and with what's going to make the biggest impact, and have the most value in your life right now. As you start to do that, you'll look around and be like, oh my gosh, I have all of these habits in place and they are dialed in. So it's just like these baby steps that kind of snowball into this overall healthy habit or healthy lifestyle that you end up creating. And like you said, getting through those stressful moments, realizing that, there's really no way out of them, there's only through. So we can either go through kicking and screaming, or we can go through, with our head on straight. And get to the other side of it in a better place. And when we do that, then we build up also that self-efficacy, that we can actually get through something when a similar situation presents itself. We know what to do, we know what helps. So definitely wanted to kind of tie into what you said with that too.
Yeah, that's perfect. 'Cause that's a really good point. I've been biohacking for a number of years now. I mean, I was using red light therapy with my husband 11 years ago. He's a pro athlete. So we've been integrating a lot of this stuff for a long, long time. So the things that I mentioned are things that I've been integrating slowly over the last 2 years, trialing it myself before I say, hey, it's one of my favorite things. And yeah, just kind of chip away at things. I can help you optimize things. So the long and short of it is, personally, I biohack for stress management, for pain reduction, being in a couple of literally two car accidents a year and a half. Super annoying when you do everything to look after yourself and ish happens, but that's life. It's just going to happen to you. So when you have these tools in your toolkit, you're going to live better. You're going to live more vibrantly. You're going to keep that excess weight off because your body isn't in that toxic state. And like the cool thing is, I know the biohack stuff that I do that I talk about here is working for me because I track my metrics. I stopped guessing with my diet and what I'm doing. Is this working? Is that working? A long time ago, and I started testing, which is why I mentioned those things on the favorites page at rachelvarga.ca. And the one thing that I've learned about like the testing and stuff like that is, last year I did a gut test and, I live super healthy, thought I was going to have great scores. My scores were like the 35th. I was in like 35% as up to like out of 100 of population. My gut scores weren't very good. But
Yeah.
what it allowed me to do was figure out when things were kind of yellow flags, right? So
Mm,
that you could catch them and modulate it and fix it before things become red flags. And I know
yeah.
that this stuff is working for me because I recently had my biological age come back through a couple of tests that I've actually compared results between two tests, and I'm younger than I am.
Wow.
I'm
That's
gonna
so
be
cool.
sharing just like how much younger I am in some upcoming episodes. So this really is your area of specialty, and we're going to wrap things up with this last question, Lauren. What advice do you have for us? Those of us who can't seem to release excess weight, which could very well be due to your fat cells holding on to toxins. We've had Dr. Sergey talk about that. He's like a Harvard scientist who dropped some
Mhm.
knowledge bombs on that. Check out that previous episode. And ways to move through body blocks and live
Mhm.
radiantly. Let's get a little bit woo here and wrap things up.
Okay. So, really, I talk about within my community, I talk about really three main things that we really, really need to look out for. A couple of them, well, actually, two of them we've met, actually, all three of them we've mentioned throughout the show kind of briefly. But chronic inflammation, hormone imbalance, and gut dysbiosis. So, really, those are the three things that we really, really need to look at when we are having any type of issue. And actually, I would even add to that a fourth one, and that would be emotional trauma. But those are the four things that we really, really need to look at if we are at a place where, we feel like we're doing, all of the right things, right? But we're not seeing any type of results. I want to say on the scale, but really the scale is not something that you want to be looking at as the main or primary thing that's tracking your progress, especially when you're going through this in a holistic way, right? Because with, approaching your weight management or release of excess weight, from a holistic component or standpoint, really what you're doing is you're healing the body so that it can release that excess weight. And that healing, it's a process. So you're going to be seeing results in, your waistline. You're going to be seeing results in your eliminations per day. You're going to be seeing results in your skin. Right. You're going to be seeing results in your mood and your mental clarity. So look at progress on all fronts first. But really, those four main things. So we talked a lot about what you can do really for your hormone management. We talked a lot about sleep and the different biohacking things that you can do to have your sleep hygiene on point and to have your sleep sanctuary on point too. Sleep is crazy important, and it's one of our most important biological processes, especially in the conversation of these two things, the gut health and in the conversation of hormones. So making sure that your sleep is on point. So if you are having an issue with, like I said, releasing that excess body fat, check in with your sleep. So many women tell me when they're working with me, "Oh my gosh, your sleep training was a life changing. Like I have so much energy. I don't have these cravings anymore." So that sleep can really be, when you optimize your sleep and you start there, that can be a gateway to so many different things for you. So I would say absolutely start with optimizing your sleep. And that's, for a lot of people, one of the easier ones to do, especially given the results that you yield from actually taking it there and optimizing that area of your life. So I would say absolutely, if you are going to be addressing hormones, do the things that we spoke about, like addressing your environment and addressing your sleep. That's going to help you so much with hormone balance. And then also in terms of gut health, when we're talking about gut health, not to oversimplify, but in the essence of saving time here, there's two really big things that we really look at when we're talking about gut health. We're looking at the balance of the bacteria and the different microbes that are there, and we're also looking at the intestinal integrity. So making sure that those tight protein junctions are staying intact and we're not having that intestinal hyperpermeability, which is going to be causing so many different, just wreaking so much havoc on the body. One of which is going to be, that other culprit, that chronic inflammation. You're not going to be absorbing nutrients the way that you would. You're going to be causing, that chronic inflammation to perpetuate throughout the body. And so many things that can come from that. That's just two things. I mean, and gut dysbiosis is linked to so many different things, but those are just two. But really, like I said, those are the two things that we really want to take a look at: the intestinal integrity and the bacteria balance. So things we can do for that: minimizing sugar. Oh, that is a big culprit, across the board here. So minimizing sugar, making sure also that we're not taking the antibiotics, because that's killing off our, not only the bacteria, but it's also diminishing our biodiversity as well. Also making sure that we are supplementing with like a probiotic, and making sure that we're also eating that whole foods plant rich diet, so that we're getting those prebiotics and we're actually feeding that good bacteria. And when we are taking care of that good bacteria, they are actually what's taking care of keeping those tight protein junctions together, so that you're not experiencing that leaky gut and all of the other things that can kind of come along with that. And then lastly too, we talked about chronic inflammation. And what do we always say when we're addressing inflammation? Like sugar, take the sugar out.
guys are sweet
We
enough.
definitely, yes, we're sweet enough. You are sweet
Yeah.
enough. So minimize that sugar to make sure that we are, not contributing to inflammation in that sense. And I like to simplify things. So just like I said, gut health is really two things. Addressing that chronic inflammation is really two things too. Not always the easiest, but very simple. So making sure that we are amplifying and really dialing in those anti-inflammatory activities and foods and ways of being and energies. And also on the flip side of that, making sure that we are diminishing or eliminating or getting rid of the pro-inflammatory things. So really that's kind of a high level overview answer to that question. And hopefully everyone listening got some really good value out of that, but really attacking those three things: the chronic inflammation, the hormone imbalance, and the gut dysbiosis. Really, if you are trying to prioritize those, I would say start with gut first because that's just going to touch on, the other two really seamlessly. They're all so interconnected. Like I said from the beginning, we're holistic. So everything's going to be interconnected, but start with addressing gut health first in those different ways that I mentioned. And then we'd say move on to hormone, which, like I said, these things are all linked. And then the chronic inflammation will kind of go there as well too. So I would definitely
Awesome.
say, yeah, check at those three things.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. So the other thing I wanted to just quickly finish on is you said inflammation, hormones, got 100%. And if you're like, oh, what's this leaky gut? Is this wooey? Wade Lightheart, Biooptimizers, dropped on an interview recently that Harvard came out with a study about 6 months ago proving that leaky gut is a thing. So I do have some family members that are like, "Oh, leaky gut, that's garbage." Just like there's research on it now. So, all
There
right,
is. I think maybe we kind of make it woo woo because we call it leaky gut, but like the medical
yeah,
term is the intestinal hyperpermeability. If you
you
want to
got it.
say that, like,
Yeah,
and
there we
you think
go.
it's more legit saying it that way, okay, fine.
100%. The last thing that I really don't want to minimize is the trauma and the emotional resilience. Personally, I
Mhm.
feel like super freaking resilient, body, mind, spirit, energy. But the thing that's getting me lately is the emotional thing. And like, just to be totally honest with you, it's like fear of the unknown. We are
Mhm.
literally writing our evolution now.
Yep.
And it's just a really fascinating time to be alive. But with those unknowns and very much so the word to use is unresolvables,
Mhm.
it's stressful, right? Because
Yeah.
it's unknown. So really find ways to bolster your emotional resilience. And the way that I do that is through minimizing my stress. So I mentioned earlier, I'm taking less calls in a day. I would, try and fit in like 5 calls. Like we're talking multiple consultations, podcasts. Now I don't do more than like 2 or 3 in a day. So
Mhm.
find ways to reduce your stress,
Mhm.
reduce your high beta state energy output. So, high beta is like when you're jacked on your coffee, like I am now. Don't be in that state all the time. And you did mention antibiotics and supplements. Now, I'll be very honest with you. I work with a ton of amazing supplements, and a lot of the ingredients, just because of ish in the world right now, I can't share those ingredients on my e-store because my stuff will get flagged.
Mhm.
So trust me, I've got some really key components to help stock your cabinet.
Yeah.
So I have family members, first sign of something, hey, I got something for that. So and these are through practitioner access. So if you're a current client of mine, send me an email and I'll make some recommendations because I've met you already. If you haven't yet and you're wanting to learn about ways to modulate your inflammation for better skin and radiance, I'll give you those recommendations there. But I'm not going to talk about those ingredients publicly for obvious reasons. It was a pleasure having you on the show, Lauren. I could
Oh,
I could
yes.
literally chat with you for another hour easily
Yeah.
here. But I wanted to give a shout out to your show.
Mhm.
So, Lauren Sanchez has a show summit coming up, and you can register for that at totalwellnessmasteryshow.com. Tune into her summit, which I am on, and I will be emailing out shortly the details for registration through my newsletter. So, when you go on my website, rachelvarga.ca, you'll see this cute little pop up of me doing my cold therapy at an adorable waterfall with my Oura ring and my arc pendant, walking the walk, talking the talk, all that stuff. Register for that so you can stay in the loop with all that. And also upcoming summits, I do list on my website as well. on the events page. So if you're wanting to check out past summits I've been on as well, it's all listed at rachelvarga.ca on the events tab. So any final thoughts here, Lauren, and how people can work with you?
Actually, yeah. So there's one other thing that I wanted to touch on because you mentioned the emotional component. So on the show this year, something really exciting. I have a few different experts who are talking about, one of which is talking about like German new medicine, which is how these different emotional um, events imprint on our brains. So there's a lot of emotional trauma, emotional resilience, stress resilience on the show this year. So super excited to talk about that as far as someone or how someone can learn more about me. You can find me on basically every platform at Purposeful Wellness with Lauren. Same thing, add a .com to the end, and that's how you get to my website. But yeah, that is a little about me. And I look forward to connecting with anyone who's kind of watching this. And if anything I said resonated with you, I'd love to connect with you.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Lauren, for joining us here on the show. And everybody who tuned in live and is catching the replay, be sure to show me some love and subscribe to the Rachel Varga Official YouTube channel, Facebook page, on Instagram at Rachel Varga Official. Hit the bell notification on YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram so that you see my posts. Get on my newsletter at rachelvarga.ca. And also, if you're looking for information on finding my favorites, the events tab, and also how to catch Lauren's summit and to learn more about her, it's all in the description notes in this episode. I'm wishing you all a lovely, warm, beautiful, radiant day. You're going to carry on with your day with a little bit more encouragement, grace, ease. Start to call that in, guys. And it's just a pleasure communing with you all here today and with you, Lauren. And we'll all be hanging out soon again, right here on the Rachel Varga podcast. Thanks, Lauren.